perceive you following her offering to the musical deities. Please give her a moment to compose herself. Oh, she's most vexed, as they must be from the sound of it.
Oh my word, what is that? Let's try and hide from this. Oh, sweet Jesus, thank you. It's suddenly become a little bit too quiet. Oh, hi, Watson.
I believe you've exhausted your admiration for that portrait, Mr. Holmes. Put it down. If you're that desperate to have a likeness of me, Mr. Holmes, something can be arranged. I possess the only negative. A copy could be made.
Thank you, milady. Do not trouble yourself. The memory of it will serve me better.
We will get back to this.
We have interrupted your practice session, Lady Lockridge. My apologies.
I will not satisfy your vanity, Mr. Holmes, by asking how you knew what I was doing. What do you want?
Civility would be welcome.
I had hoped your uninvited visit would be a pleasant interruption for my battle with Mozart. Alter your tone and my girl will show you the door.
Felicitations are in order, I believe. You are affianced to Lord Lawton?
He has that honour. Your visit concerns him.
I'm investigating a sensitive matter which came before his ministry committee. Lawton was unable to assist me. I thought you might be able to help.
An official investigation? Has he done something improper or dishonourable?
Lord Lawton is not the object of my investigation. I currently have no allegations to bring.
His reputation cannot stand a single sniff of scandal. I won't hear the hint of one in my home. If you have no accusations, the subject of Lord Lawton is closed.
You are a rare and flexible musician, I perceive.
Given my technique, I would have been a superb pianist. But my inspiration is consumed by the violin.
You must favour us with a selection. I'm sure Dr. Watson would think real music a wonderful change.
Those who possess the gift must share it with the less fortunate, Mr. Holmes. Noblesse oblige. And I would play for you now, but my energies are currently devoted to mastering a troublesome Paganini etude.
Another time would suit.
But as you press so fervently, I shouldn't like to disappoint you. Perhaps a little Paganini, as you insist. think what's wrong with this instrument. It doesn't seem to care for Paganini. You must excuse me. I have to return to my etude.
That sounded like more of a Parganono.
A lovely photograph of you and Lord Lawton, if I may say so.
You may, though it doesn't really show me to advantage. It marks the agreement to ally our houses. Lawton's very pleased with his. Doubtless you saw it in his music room.
What a superb instrument. A Guarneri, isn't it?
To a true artist, the instrument is but a tool. Do you play, Mr. Holmes?
I dabble, Lady Lockridge. Unlike yourself, my meagre talent cannot conceal my incompetence.
I'm sure it cannot. But I was not always a master, Mr. Holmes. The musical bounty you hear now is the fruit of arduous practice. Do likewise, and you may one day hope to approach my ability.
I'll look forward to that. Who was the lucky photographer, Lady Lockridge? He did a beautiful job.
You think so, do you? Well, if I ever see him again, perhaps I'll convey your sentiments. Given his clientele, I'm sure he couldn't care less for the good opinion of a man like you.
Wow. What's he trying to say? I thought Holmes was pretty well liked.
Might I say your decorator was inspired, Lady Lockridge? Did he take guidance from you?
Followed my instructions to the letter. As it happens, I have impeccable taste. I could have been a designer if it weren't below my station.
Can you identify that odour, Watson?
The unmistakable scent of wretched excess.
Moralizing aside, if you please. Is it some sort of camphorated oil?
Incense, I think, to impress the arbiters of bad taste or disguise a fouler smell.
I'd rank it somewhere between a sick ward and a low-rent perfumery. I sense resistance. Do you suppose she will not assist us?
I wouldn't be surprised if her manners were as abominable as her decor.
Purple appeals to some people.
The colour scheme does not signify. It's the ostrich feathers and the marble pots and the ostentatious use of gold leaf that I abhor. The sooner we vacate these premises, the better.
Something you'd like to hear, Watson?
Perhaps one of your own compositions, Holmes. But mind you do justice to the difficult sections, if you take my meaning.
Perfectly apt and instantly grasped, Doctor. This looks like an engagement photo. I didn't see one at Lawton's.
I expect he has one, if only to display when she comes around.
We may not have exhausted his collection. Perhaps it would help if I played Lord Lawton's part.
It might. You couldn't play worse than he. You see, it's a hodgepodge.
My hat, Lady Lockridge. You've set yourself two very difficult pieces. All will be well with time and practice.
I doubt it, Mr. Holmes. Far from well. My artistic soul has been vexed and discommoded. I am displeased. The Mozart is merely challenging, but the etude is a heartache. Either Paganini was a fool, or he has been erroneously transcribed. There are simply too many notes. This piece is entirely unplayable.
Might I presume to offer my assistance?
I can't imagine how you might help.
If I may borrow the score, I shall return.
Take it, by all means, before I rip it to shreds.
I don't think that I showed this in a previous video, but there is one other location where we can hear more of the Paganini etudes. I believe that this episode is going to be very loud for some people. Anyway, let's get back to Lady Lockridge. It seems like she has the same tuner as Lord Lawton.
Lady Cordelia, I may have discovered where Paganini went wrong.
Indeed? I knew it. Show me. I must know his wicked folly.
The etude requires a very unorthodox fingering. It's quite bizarre, most eccentric. It violates every convention a master like yourself could be expected to observe.
Show it, show it.
May I?
The transcriptor is a torturer and an idiot. I told Lawton at least a dozen times it had to be wrong. I'd like to wring his neck. Thank you, Mr. Holmes, for pointing out the error of his ways.
And all it took was a bit of unorthodox fingering.
Might you now tell me, my lady, why Lord Lawton has been reluctant to speak with me?
Caution, Mr. Holmes. Simple prudence. Lord Lawton is on a very short tether. The peccadilloes, financial encumbrances, and legal obligations of his past meet me everywhere in town. He must avoid untoward entanglements of any sort or imperil his marriage prospects. He may regard you as a threat to his expectations.
But I bear him no ill will. I intend him no harm.
I dare say. But the road to oblivion is paved with good intentions. You are trouble incarnate, Mr. Holmes. Troubles employ you. They nurture you. And I'll wager you almost always leave trouble in your wake. Now, I must practice. You can see yourselves out.
What can you tell me about Lord Lawton's man, Jenkins?
He's too forward by half, for starters. Lord Lawton allows him to play billiards, for heaven's sake. A prescription for encouraging a servant to get above himself.
Perhaps they enjoy the competition.
Nonsense. It's an unhealthy passion. I've told Jenkins that his behaviour is unseemly. He continues to spite me. When we combine households, he'll be looking for work, sans references.
Poor Jenkins. Now maybe she will let us look more closely at this portrait.
Lady Lockridge, who is Mr. Hargrove?
Discovered a secret, have you? I suppose you've earned it. Edward Hargrove, Mount Street, is the demi-monde's current darling. Dubious clientele. Persistent, disagreeable rumours. But Lawton insisted. And he did a good job. Still, a woman of my standing and position can't afford to be associated with such a person. He's not unimpeachably respectable.
Okay, I think we are done. Now the Daily Telegraph has been here pretty early on, but it wasn't until a short while ago where another character actually mentions visiting here. Now again, before we speak to Friedman, there's things we can poke around with. Actually, there's a couple of things we must examine before we speak to Friedman to gain some more information. So yes, we must examine these posters and portraits before we continue, but there are a couple of things we can mess around with here.
Holmes, are you familiar with the symptoms that characterize kleptomania?
All we did was pick up the ashtray and put it down again. Maybe the true improvement was peace of mind.
Watch it, Holmes, you'll hurt yourself on the sharp bits.
I believe that is all that we can poke around with here, optionally.
Hello, Charles. We're not interrupting.
Just finishing up, Sherlock. How's your brother? Dreadful accident. Coming round, is he?
Out of immediate danger, thank you. You remember my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson?
Of course. Hello, Doctor. Make yourselves comfortable in the loosest meaning of the word. I'll be with you in a moment.
No, I think you will be with us now.
You've assembled a remarkable group of character portraits.
They are open, if slightly smeared, windows onto our capricious times.
I keep a collection for similar purposes, mostly criminal subjects.
And the small posters are my rogues exhibit, villains all.
The portrait of Kropotkin is revealing.
Admirable man. His major weakness is prophesying war every next fortnight.
Even anarchists need a hobby, I suppose. This small portrait is distinctive. Who is it? Or more to the point, what is it?
Well observed. That was and may well be Louis Baptiste Gautier, the terrorist absconded from the Paris cells without a trace in 1857.
Very interesting. An artist has introduced age to the image of the younger man's face, so he might be recognized if he reappeared.
Exactly. My artist drew on the old picture and then photographed his work.
He's a clever craftsman, your artist. Who is he?
Nigel Hemmings, illustrator and portrait artist by training, first rate. No one would buy his painting, so he took up photography.
The posters are very well drawn. Same artist?
Yes, Hemmings says the American police call them mug shots.
Peculiar expression. Some of these must be extrapolations from old photos, adding beards and wrinkles and so on.
Yes, and others are subjects I've seen and described. With a first-person account, he can age a man, get his expression right, that sort of thing.
Scotland Yard could benefit from his skill.
You're right, of course, but would they? I heard Lestrade say Bertillon's system of criminal identification was a bunch of foreign nonsense. He takes so badly to new methods.
Don't I know it? I'm trying to identify a man, Charles. Might I explore your memory?
You can try. I assume your inquiry is confidential?
Acute as ever. The man figures somehow in the murder of a civil servant. Secrets of state are at risk.
What does he look like?
I've never seen him, but one who did says he's thickly built, fair, with a small discoloration on his bearded face, perhaps a birthmark. He was wearing a dark slouch hat and cape, and he speaks German.
Language is not decisive. He could be German, Austrian, Prussian, Hungarian, Polish, even Russian. Anything else?
Regrettably, no. The witness' vantage point and the lack of light made expression and gait unremarkable. He couldn't even guess at his age.
No one springs to mind, Sherlock. Or rather, 10 men do, but are they in England? Is he a criminal, a secret agent, a diplomat? With so little to differentiate them, I'm useless, I'm afraid.
With such meagre details, my hopes were not high.
Give me particulars, man, then maybe I can help. Or if not me, someone I know.
Do you still have associates whom you trust at the Home Office?
Ah, you suspect the involvement of a foreign power, don't you? Yes, I was thinking along those lines myself. Listen, when you discover the man's identity, I can introduce you to someone who might help.
Thank you, Charles.
A pleasure to see you, Sherlock. You're always onto something intriguing.
Might I have young Hemmings' address?
He's a staff photographer for the Standard.
I would prefer a less public audience.
Oh, yes, of course. You can often find him in his garret at 14 Montague Street, just across from the British Museum.
Is this profusion of papers really necessary? Place is a fire hazard.
Impossible to have too many papers.
Watson is always at me to cut down on my consumption.
One should never be without a fresh newspaper. No item is more serviceable. Absorbs grease from fish and chips, wraps garbage or lines a threadbare coat. Use it as a towel, a fan, a sunshade, an umbrella, a dustpan, a carpet, and if worse comes to worse, heaven forfend, you can always read it. Help yourself to the Telegraph. It's hot off the press.
Your argument is exhausting, if not compelling.
I have never used a newspaper as a towel.
Have you had more thoughts about my subject, Charles?
I rather expected a mugshot for reference. By the way, are you certain he wears a beard?
According to my source. Have you heard anything about terrorist involvement in the Diogenes explosion?
Not a whisper. It was an accident, certainly, wasn't it?
To say I hope so would be as unseemly as it would be insincere. But if you've heard nothing, let it be. Observations, Doctor?
The temperature here is positively glacial. If you are insensible to it, you must count Laplanders among your ancestors.
A picture of our villain would be invaluable, would it not?
Absolutely. But if I understand Mr. Friedman, a second-hand source would be close to worthless.
Fortunately, we know how to avoid that pitfall.
Okay, I believe that this is the exit. I'm not exactly too sure where the other door leads to, or even if we can actually enter it. Anyway, we need to go right here.